In a small change without much fanfare, Super Heavy Auxiliaries do seem to be a bit cheaper and maybe a bit more usable in the Grand Tournament Pack 2021. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel, where today we're talking about a small development from the Grand Tournament Mission Pack that until now had completely escaped my notice. A little while back I made a video discussing the plight of Super Heavies in 9th edition and why they weren't seeing very much table time. Although quite a few of them aren't massively efficient points wise, some of them are interesting. But a big factor in keeping them off the table is that for some reason in 9th edition you are enormously punished for even taking one of these by having to give up quite a few command points. Up to now the way it's been in 9th was that Super Heavy detachments, the one where you got 3 to 5 Lord of War choices, they would cost 6 CP. And if you wanted to take one Super Heavy, then you could take it in a Super Heavy Auxiliary detachment. That would cost you 3 command points, but it also had the additional negatives of not getting any chapter tactics, regiment traits, legion traits, or anything like that. It meant that really for the Super Heavy choices to be efficient, you had to spam at least 3 of them. And that's not something that people very commonly want to do. It does make your list into a bit of a skew list, and like I said, quite a lot of the choices aren't enormously efficient. Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights were kind of okay, as they get their 6 CP refunded if their Warlord is part of the detachment, but things like Wraith Knights, Necron Monoliths, Imperial Guard Baneblades and everything weren't really quite as commonly played. A lot of factions do have their own Super Heavy now, but aside from occasional oddball appearances like the Khorne Lord of Skulls, unless you're the Silent King or a Primarch with the Supreme Commander tag, in general people tended to keep Super Heavies off the table. In any case, that's all about to change a bit, as they seem to have made the Super Heavy Auxiliary detachment a little bit cheaper, provided it's from the same faction as your Warlord. So this change comes in the Grand Tournament 2021 mission pack, so it's only a change for the more competitive games of 40k, and it's not a change for standard match play, say if you're playing the Eternal War missions out of the book. I feel like that might bring the two into conflict just a little bit more. There are already some small discrepancies between the GT pack and the main book, such as being able to use specialist attachments in the Eternal War missions and not in the GT missions, but now you can have other army list factors that mean that the same list won't be quite the same in GT, as if you're playing Eternal War missions, the Super Heavy must cost 3 CP, and if you're playing it in the GT missions, then they must cost 2. Other than this though, for selecting an army in the GT missions, it does seem to have kept all the same restrictions and things. You can't take any under strength units, you can't take any specialist attachments, and you have to follow the rule of 3 or rule of 2 if you're playing an incursion game. For the changed rule itself, it's now found in the muster armies section, and it only ever applies if your Warlord shares the same faction keyword with that Super Heavy Auxiliary detachment. They do put the usual stipulation in that it can't just be the keyword of Imperium, Chaos, Eldari or Tyranids. That means that you can't just have, say, a Space Marine Warlord and get a cheaper Imperial Knight Super Heavy Auxiliary. So it's basically for armies using their own Super Heavy units, say like Space Marines running an Astrius tank, or Imperial Guard running a Baneblade. They just have to share one of their other faction keywords with it, such as say Astra Militarum, or something else like that. Additionally, your Warlord can't be from that Super Heavy Auxiliary themselves. Might be a bit of a strange option, but I guess you could theoretically run an Imperial Knight Warlord as your Super Heavy Auxiliary, and then just shave off a free command point for that. Probably wouldn't be the end of the world, but I guess that this is trying to address one specific thing. In any case, if you meet those conditions, then you change the command benefit of one Super Heavy Auxiliary detachment to 2 command points instead of 3, so a marginal shaving and a slight buff to taking them. In terms of who this is going to benefit most, obviously things like Guard Baneblades, Wraith Lords, Orc Stompers, Necron Monoliths, or the Khorne Lord of Skulls, they're all essentially just a little bit cheaper to field. You're basically getting a small command point boost if you're choosing to run them alongside their given factions. In general though, it's not going to be enormously useful for Imperial Knights. I guess they already have their own ways of refunding command points, so they shouldn't generally need this anyway. Most of the time if you're running Knights, I guess you're just going to be running everything in one Super Heavy detachment. I suppose theoretically for Knights you could run a Super Heavy detachment and then run a single Super Heavy Auxiliary at a slight discount. I suppose in theory that could be a way to give you access to other houses' relics and war gear options, though it would be a bit sad to lose the free household trait that you'd get and 2 command points. In general, I'm not sure that a 1 command point discount is going to be enormously influential in whether or not people run some of these units. You still will be taking a 2 command point hit on any of the units if you field them, and that still means that they're going to have to be a bit more efficient than choices just out of the main detachments you can take if people are going to be playing them. In any case though, I think it's a step in the right direction. I think it's a broadly sensible change, as it lessens attacks that I'm not even really sure needed to be there in the first place. So anyway, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Is it a good change, and is it enough of a change to see any of your Super Heavies hitting the table once more? If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. I'll certainly try and keep the videos coming, with new content coming out pretty much every day. Finally, if you have been enjoying regularly, I'd just like to mention the channel's Patreon page, which you can find down in the video description below. Making all the content does take a fair amount of time, and if you are enjoying regularly, any support is enormously appreciated. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, including seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry to the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some really big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, then the link is down in the video description below. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.